Welcome back to the channel, guys. So based on my feedback from the community tab about based on my feedback from the community tab about doing a Q&A, that's what this video is. So you all answered. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So I had posed the question if anybody was interested in doing a Q&A and to have you all drop your questions about me. It doesn't have to be about books, anything specific, in my community tab, and I got plenty of responses, so here is that video with my answers. So there were a good amount of questions. I may loop in some of them or group some of them together because some of them were repeating. So I'm just going to run down the list and answer your questions. Okay, so from Alan over at the Library of Alexandria. Hey, Alan. Where are you from? What did you study in school? How did you meet your wife? And if you were a greatcoat, you would be called the King's blank. Okay, so where am I from? I was originally born in Pleasanton, California, and I've pretty much spent my entire life around the Northern Virginia area. Lived here, moved around multiple cities, towns, things like that, but I have been here pretty much forever. What did I study in school? Business administration. That's what I have my degree in, but that is not what I do for work. How did I meet my wife? In high school. She was a cheerleader and I was a football player. Go figure. And if I were a greatcoat, I would be the King's smartass. All right, so then Dean Ryan Martin asks, how do you correctly pronounce your last name? It is Nieves. It is not actually Knives or Nieves, but I have gotten both of those. Nieves, people just bailing halfway through it. It's not that hard. It's Nieves. Shelby Turner asked, if you lived in the Final Empire, that sucks, doesn't it? That place is terrible. Which of the allomantic powers would you like to have and why? Okay, so allomancy, I think I would pick brass so I could soothe people's emotions so that when my children are yelling at me, I could just be like, shh, stop it. Jay Durham asks, what originally made you interested in reading before the reading slump? Harry Potter and then Aragon. I grew up reading Harry Potter because I think I was 7 when the first book came out. No, that's not true. I guess that would be like my first real fantasy. When I was younger in elementary school, pretty much like the scholastic school library things that we always did. So I was reading a lot of Captain Underpants. What else? Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And was it Magic Treehouse? I'll put it right here. Is that what it was? Like the brother and sister that have a treehouse and they kind of like go into different fantasy stories. That was my jam when I was young. Do you have any favorite non-sci-fi fantasy books? I don't know. I haven't read a lot until recently, and it's been almost entirely sci-fi and fantasy. I'll table that for now. Oh, I guess non-sci. Okay, so the one horror book so far that I've read this year, which was Chad Nicholas's Nightmare, that book was really good. So that one. Do you listen to audiobooks? Why or why not? Yes, I do. Not all the time though. So usually with very, very big books, I've done this a lot with The Wheel of Time. I will both read and do the audiobook just so one, I can get through more of the book in a day because sometimes I don't necessarily want to sit down and read, but I listen to the audiobook while I'm either walking around the house, working out, golfing, things like that, or just, playing a game. I rarely default to an audiobook though because I do like my experience of actually reading it more, but I do an audiobook if I want to get more done and I want to just do something else while still reading the book. Joe at Joe's Review Journal asked me if I had to rename my baby, well, I have 2 of them, what fantasy character name would you choose? Seriously though, we need to know. So my daughter's name is Elena. If I had to rename her based on a fantasy character, it would probably be Vin. And if I had to rename my son Benton, it would probably be Dalinar. Ooh, or Darrow. I'm not going to go with Double Sanderson, so it would be Darrow. Sherfa McLean asks, will your wife ever be on your channel? Yes, she will be in a video coming soon. Alvin Smith said, preferred drink, beer, wine, or liquor? Beer. Paperback, hardcover, or e-reader? I love hardcovers the most. They're obviously not portable, so that would be my Kindle, but in general, hardcover. I love trade paperbacks though, but I think hardcovers just feel the best. It's like the best feeling of holding a book is having a full-size hardcover. Favorite sports teams? Dallas Cowboys. I'm recording this on Sunday. They just won against the Falcons. Favorite fantasy trope? I love Chosen One stories. It's just so tried and true and classic. And yeah, everyone does it, but I love it. Batman or Iron Man? Is this a question? Batman. My wife asks, why is your wife the coolest person ever? Because you've stuck with me for this long and you gave me beautiful children and a family, and I love you. Danica Christian says, what got you back into reading? I've actually answered this before, I think in some other videos somewhere, but YouTube, really. End of last year, I started watching a lot of YouTube. I found Daniel Green's channel and some other booktubers, which I found out was a thing last year, and got me really excited about fantasy books in general, and that's when I went and picked up The Eye of the World, Mistborn, some other things, and then went from there. And as soon as I finished Mistborn Era 1, I was like, all right, I want to do this. I'm going to start making videos. Since you said you want to read more horror, how about psychological thrillers like Gone Girl or Woman in the Window? I actually want to read both of those. We own Gone Girl. My wife has read it and loved it. I plan on reading some more thrillers as well. The only thing that I've read so far was Nightmare by Chad Nicholas that I mentioned earlier, which was very much a psychological thriller. So I'm not just sticking to horror specifically. It can be a blend of thriller, whatever else falls under horror. Danny Matson, Patreon. What books do you want to read to your children when they are older? I would still probably read Harry Potter to them, just because that's such a good, like, middle grade young book to read to kids. And then probably, if they're still around, the same kind of stuff that I grew up on, like Captain Underpants, just goofy superhero kind of fantasy stories like that. Just those in general. The Bookish Mom, hey Jesse, says, if you could spend the day with one fictional character, who would it be and why? Lanfear. Okay, serious answer. Also Wheel of Time. Loyal, because he's super nice and, like, big, fluffy, cuddly giant man, and I think he would just be really interesting and sweet to talk to, and he would show me trees and lore and tell me all about lore and books and stuff. So Loyal. When will I start First Law? Amareza Alavi says. Alavi? I'm sorry. I really want to start it soon, but Dune is sneaking up into my TBR. I'm finishing the Greatcoats. I'm catching up to Stormlight. I need to read Dragon Republic before Burning God comes out in November. Fires of Vengeance comes out in November. Ready Player 2 comes out in November. So my next couple of months are going to be pretty stacked. If I have any, and I'm still continuing Dresden and Wheel of Time, stuff like that. If I do have any room, it'll sneak in probably December is when I'll start that. But then I'm also starting Malazan in January, so hopefully soon. I really want to get to Abercrombie, but it might slip a couple of months. Shell Dion 2000 says, what do you do for a living? You mentioned traveling for work. Explain. Happy for you and your family. So I am, I guess, an IT auditor or security assessor. It would be an entire video in itself, probably explaining exactly what I do, but long story short, I test the security systems against government guidelines, essentially. So traveling is usually I would go to a client site in a different state and then, be there for a week and come home. So obviously, because of the pandemic, I have not traveled at all this year. So Mila M asked, this may be strange and I don't know how to properly word it, but what kind of spren would you like to have as a companion? Or what kind would you like to bond with? And what's the best Stormlight character? So, based on the Way of Kings and the little bit of Words of Radiance that I've read, Dalinar is still my number one. No. I don't know. Dalinar or Kaladin. Kaladin really grew on me by the end of the book, but I think it would still be Dalinar. And what kind of spren would I like to bond with? That's a good question, isn't it? I'm going to use a cop-out answer, Syl, because I literally just want Syl to follow me around. Okay, so Phasered84 asked a bunch of questions. Some of them are duplicates. So let's just say favorite takeout order. We get Chinese food all the time, so Kung Pao chicken. Favorite book of all time? Honestly, right now, it's probably Golden Sun, which is book 2 of Red Rising. Yeah. Go-to music, like the first song you would go and listen to. I mean, I don't have like a particular one that I would be like, oh, I need to listen to this right now. I usually just pull up Spotify and hit shuffle, and whatever comes on is what I listen to, which is all kinds of varieties. A lot of country, hip hop, synthwave. I'm all over the place. Milk or cereal first? Who puts the milk in first? Name one or few underhyped books. Either the Faithful and the Fallen series that definitely picked up traction after Mike on Mike's book reviews covered it a lot, or the Greatcoats. I hadn't really heard anything about Sebastian de Castell or the Greatcoats, and I think those are pretty underrated, and I absolutely love them. They are fantastic. And what advice would you like to give? Any type, subject, impersonal or personal, philosophical, etc. Just be you in any aspect of life that you choose. Just be genuine, be yourself. Don't try to copy somebody. Jessica YJ says favorite trilogies and or duology. So my favorite trilogies this year that I've read so far would be Red Rising, which is now 5 to 6 books being read, but the first trilogy is my favorite that I've read all year, and then slightly behind that is Mistborn Era 1. I don't think I've actually read any duologies. Delia K says, do you prefer shopping at bookstores or shopping online? Both. I love the actual aspect of being in a bookstore and wandering the shelves and grabbing the books physically. That is my preferred experience. But bookstores have much worse selections, at least where I'm at, because they're usually Books A Millions and Barnes & Noble, and they have a lot of like the new fantasy and sci-fi stuff. But if I'm really looking to collect a full series or, any like Wheel of Time hardcovers or all these Dresden Orbit books, Book Depository, Amazon, Abe Books, whatever website I can find it on, I love shopping online. Do I have any guilty pleasures? Books or other? Not really. I don't think so. I don't really watch any like trashy TV or anything. I don't know. Is still listening to like the Backstreet Boys a guilty pleasure? We'll go with that. Navi asks, hey Navi, another patron. Which modern fantasy or sci-fi book do you think will be a timeless classic in the future? That's kind of hard to answer, honestly, because I feel like a lot of them are going to stay the same. So like 10 years from now, I think sci-fi people are still going to talk about Dune. They're still going to talk about Ender's Game for some reason. Fantasy, probably Stormlight, just because of the sheer like task that he's set forth. The Wheel of Time will still be talked about. As far as like new, if it had to be like new, like it started somewhat recently, probably Stormlight, because Sanderson is so famous and well known. A timeless classic, that's hard, because I still think 30 years from now people are going to be telling you to read Lord of the Rings, and they're probably right. Dean had another question. Who's my favorite author of all time? So it would be a couple. Definitely George R.R. Martin, but he's never going to finish the books, so that sucks. I really love Pierce Brown's Red Rising. Honestly, Sanderson is one of the best working authors right now, and even though he's been kind of hit or miss for me, the guy hits more than he misses. So, I really love Sebastian de Castell right now. John Gwynne is fantastic. Obviously, Jim Butcher is great. Joe Abercrombie, I have not personally read yet, but I know everybody that I talked to absolutely loves his First Law series. So, and then of course Robert Jordan with the Wheel of Time. There's too many for me to really just pick one that I like the most. I think like my enjoyment for books that I've read so far, Red Rising is my favorite series, but something like somebody like Sanderson has written so many different things that maybe that's a better answer. I don't really know. I like a lot of people, and I don't think I would just pick one. I'd have to really think about like who I like more than the other. Jasmine Reyes says, if you had to read only one series forever, which would it be? So, forever. I would have to pick something that's long enough to not get repetitive and boring, and that I would love enough and get enough out of rereading, which I don't currently do. So honestly, the only things probably right now would be either The Wheel of Time, because then I could actually reread them, and please all the people that get mad at me for saying I'm not going to reread them. Dresden, just because there's so many of them, and they're hilarious, and I love them. They'd probably get boring after reread, though, so I think Wheel of Time, and then maybe Stormlight, but that's only 4 books right now, so maybe Stormlight after it's done in 30 years or however long it's going to take. So right now, Wheel of Time. Jessica had another question. Fantasy standalone Rex. Standalone. So I don't read a lot of standalones, or I haven't yet. Warbreaker, which I just finished, was great. Didn't like Elantris. What other standalones have I read? Yeah, everything I've read is pretty much a series, so... Warbreaker. Sarah Duane Crawford says, top 5 TV shows. So I love a lot of comedies. That's usually my go-to. So the first things that I would think of are The Office and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I really, really loved the Game of Thrones TV show. Yes, I hated the last couple of seasons like everybody else did, but you can't discredit them for what they did. I mean, that show was an incredible accomplishment. I would probably say Breaking Bad. And what would be my fifth? I should really prepare for these questions, shouldn't I? Oh man, see, I don't know. All right, I'm going to change that because my brain doesn't work sometimes on the spot. So I would still go with Always Sunny in the Office. Friends would probably be on there because, again, I like comedies. Futurama and or Archer because they're fantastic. I'm gonna cheat. Breaking Bad, I already said, was great. Game of Thrones. There's a ton of other shows that I've loved that I would probably also battle for the top 5, but that's what I'm thinking of right now. Philip Chase, hey Phil. What are the names of your 3 dogs and what sort of dogs are they? So 2 of them were in my bookshelf tour video. So Loki is our mini Australian Shepherd. Cora is our Border Collie, and then Jade is a German Shepherd mutt that we got from a shelter, and I don't really know exactly what she is, but she kind of looks like a mix of a German Shepherd and a Greyhound. And then finally, Luicity says, pizza or pasta? Dude, that's like choosing children. Why would you do that? I love pizza, but I think I'd have to go pasta. Lasagna, spaghetti, freaking gnocchi, just all kinds of pasta, man. Give me pasta. Pasta and bread. So we have a lot of Italians in our family, and we eat a lot of pasta. All right, everybody, so that's going to wrap up the questions. Thank you all so much for participating and asking me questions. This was a lot of fun for me. I hope you all got to know me a little bit better, and we can always do some things like this in the future. I'm going to be using my community tab a lot, just asking you all questions, whether they be video ideas or just general talking to everybody, because I really want to engage with the audience more. So please like and subscribe the video. As always, hop in the Discord if you want to talk to me there. And the Patreon is also available if you feel like donating to the channel. It does help me out, but that is totally optional, completely up to you. So thank you all for watching, and as always, keep reading.